G'day everyone, Tempo here, and welcome to the TD Project. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about something very serious, and I'm going to make a claim that I feel will be quite controversial and upsetting to many people. And this is very serious, and if any of my videos get shared around, it definitely has to be this one. And what this video is about, what I'm going to say, what I'm claiming, is that I can pretty much guarantee right now, as of the making and uploading of this video, that at least one Australian house this winter will catch fire and burn down. It's a very serious statement, and I just want to say that this is not a threat of any kind. I'm not going to go out there and set fire to people's houses, and I'm not going to get people to do that for me. That's not what this is. This is, I guess you could say, a premonition and a warning, because winter is coming, Lord of the Rings reference not intended, and lots of Australians are starting to crank out their heaters, and every winter for as long as I can remember, there's always been at least one news story about at least one Australian household catching fire due to a heater and burning down. And an Australian house has burned down pretty much every winter for as long as I can remember. And I don't understand why this is happening, because you'd think people would learn from the previous year about what happened to this family or these families and having their houses burned down due to heaters. And it's like people just aren't taking these stories seriously. They're not taking these warnings seriously. And every year, more Australian houses still burn down due to heaters. And it's not like these heaters are necessarily the cause. They're causing the fires, but it's not the heaters' fault. It's not like these heaters are programmed to set these houses on fire. Just about every one of these stories where an Australian house has burnt down during the winter due to the heater has been because people have just not been using their heaters properly. And I just don't understand, because I feel it should be common sense and common knowledge with regards to how to properly use a heater, how to not misuse a heater, but apparently not, because every year an Australian house burns down, and this trend is still ongoing. And I can pretty much guarantee right now, before winter actually hits Australia, that this winter an Australian house will burn down due to someone not properly using an indoor heater. And so let me explain, right? So if you flash back through the news articles of the last few winters, and you look into these stories of Australian houses burning down, you'll look into, a lot of the time it's caused by a heater, and a lot of the time it's caused by people who own the heaters not using their heaters properly. Whether it's they leave the heaters on while they're unattended, or they leave the heaters on while they're ridiculously close to flammable materials, or they put stuff over the heaters, they cover the heaters. And it's just like, you're doing all these things which I feel should be common sense not to do with heaters, but people are still doing them, and then their houses are burning down, and then these news stories occur every year, and people just, I guess they think, this will never happen to me, and it doesn't matter how I use my heater because it hasn't happened to me yet. And then later on, whether that winter or the following winter, their house will burn down. And it's stupid. I just don't understand why houses are still burning down due to the misuse of heaters. Wake up, Australia. Pull your head out of your ass. It's not that hard to not misuse a heater. Just use the heater properly and your house probably won't burn down. But no, too many people don't want to do that. They're content with taking the risk of misusing their heater and letting their house burn down, and what do you know? Their house has burned down. Now, I'm not having a go at all the families that have been affected by these house fires over the last few years. If anything, my condolences to all the losses that these house fires have caused, because once your house burns down, that's a lot of damage to personal property, to your emotional and mental states, and to the immediate family of that household, and to their family and friends. There's a lot of tolls involved when someone's house burns down. But from here, moving forward, can we please stop misusing heaters? Can we please use our heaters properly? Can we try and acknowledge the fact that if we misuse our heaters, we will probably start a house fire and your house will probably burn down? that's what I'm trying to get at with this video. There's too many people out there content with misusing the heater, whether they actually know they're not using the heater properly, or whether they're completely ignorant with the lack of common sense and common knowledge about how heaters should be used, and the houses are probably going to burn down. So this video is a premonition that a house will burn down. Another Australian house will probably burn down this winter due to the misuse of heater, and it's a warning. And if this warning is heeded properly, I would really like it if Australia would prove me wrong and no houses would burn down this winter. I don't want a house to burn down this winter just to prove my point right. If anything, I want this video to spread. I want this video to be shared around, this message to get shared around. I want all of Australia to acknowledge that a lot of people are misusing their heaters, and if they misuse their heater, their house will probably burn down. Prove me wrong, Australia, please. If no one's house burns down this winter, I'll be extremely happy. Prove me wrong, please. Prove me wrong. I want no Australian houses to burn down this winter, because statistically, it's pretty much a statistical guarantee at this point that someone is going to misuse their heater and burn down their house. So I just don't understand, Australia. What's the problem? This happens pretty much every year, and no one is acknowledging that. Just don't misuse your heater. And first off, all right, it should be common sense and common knowledge how to use your heater properly and how to not misuse it. And even, let's say you somehow get through your life without being aware of how to properly use a heater or how to misuse a heater. It's going to be on the packaging of the heater when you buy it. It's going to be in the instruction manual of the heater when you buy it. And there's probably going to be warning labels on the heater. And I just don't understand how your houses are still burning down, Australia. Stop misusing your heaters. Stop setting your house on fire. And so I'm going to go out on this video with a couple of safety tips, which I feel should be a given. They should be a given at this point, but clearly they're not, because Australian houses are still burning down every winter. So here's my tips, all right? Should be common sense. I feel these points should be common sense, but clearly they're not. First, don't leave flammable items near your heater. This is one of the things that causes fire. You leave a flammable item, let's say like a blanket or a rug or curtains, close by to a heater, and they're gonna catch fire. I don't know what to tell you. Like you could go out there and do it right now, and you could watch the heater for a bit, and it might not happen straight away. But the longer you leave your heater near flammable items, the greater your chance of starting a fire. Like, I feel that should be a given. All right. Next, don't place items directly on the heater. Like, people use these heaters as makeshift electric blankets. They put their blankets over these heaters, or they use these heaters to dry items, like to dry their laundry when they can't hang their clothes up. And it's just, I feel it should be a given that you should not be covering a heater. Like, you should not be covering such a heat source, which has a warning label on it not to cover, because it's a fire hazard. And it should be a given that it's a fire hazard if you put stuff over a heater, if you cover the heater while it's on. It should be a given that it's a fire hazard, but clearly it's not. So there's another tip for you. Don't put stuff over your heater, especially if it's flammable, like blankets. I don't understand what's wrong with you guys. Okay, the next tip I'm gonna say is don't leave your heaters unattended. Just don't leave your heater unattended. If you're gonna use a heater, it should be in the same room as you. You should be keeping an eye on your heater. In the same way, you really shouldn't be leaving your oven unattended. You shouldn't be leaving any sort of fire unattended. In the same way, you shouldn't be leaving your kids unattended. Alright? You wouldn't leave your toddler unattended. Don't leave your heater unattended. Because if you leave your heater unattended for a prolonged period of time, you have no way of knowing if a fire has actually started. It's like a Schrodinger's fire up in there, alright? You could turn around and you don't know if the fire's going to start as soon as you turn your back, or if it's going to start an hour later because you're just not keeping an eye on your heater. If you don't keep an eye on your heater, if you don't keep watch of your heater, there's a chance you might start a fire. And if you're not watching it when a fire starts, the more time that fire burns, the higher the likelihood of you getting screwed over by the fire. I'm just throwing that out there. If you're watching your heater and something happens, like a fire starts, then you can respond immediately. You can respond immediately because you were paying attention to the heater, or you're in the same room as the heater. You can do your best to stop the fire before it spreads throughout your house. But if you're not watching your heater, if it's unattended and a fire starts, you're screwed. I'm sorry, I'm just throwing it out there. Don't leave your heater unattended. And that leads into the next point. Don't fall asleep with the heater on. Most of these fires where Australian houses burn down due to improper use of heaters happen when the members of the household are asleep, because they leave the heaters on while they're asleep. And that's pretty much the same as if you leave the heater unattended. Except I'd argue it's probably worse, because let's say you're asleep and your heater's on and you accidentally start a fire. Your response time is going to be significantly less if you're in the other room because you're asleep. You then have to wake up, whether it's your foot's on fire or you can't breathe because of the smoke, and then next thing you know, you wake up inside a fire. Like, the best thing to do is to not fall asleep with the heater on. Or at the very least, if it's too cold for you, for whatever, because all the blankets and jumpers in the world can't keep you warm, and you need the heater on while you sleep, put it on a timer, please. Just put it on a timer for, like, let's say 1 hour. And then eventually the room will heat up, and then the heater will switch off, and you're fine. Alright? Stop leaving your heaters on all night while you sleep, because that's how half these fires happen, alright? So please, Australia, heed my warning. If you're going to share any of my videos around, make sure it's this one. This is a genuine concern, and I would love if Australia proved me wrong this year and no one burnt their house down by not properly using a heater. Please, that would mean the world to me. So, to everyone else in Australia, what do you think? Do you know how to use a heater properly because you're not really a muppet? Or do you just not care and just do whatever you want with the heaters and just do the opposite of all these points I listed because it hasn't happened to you and you just don't care? To the rest of the world, to any of my international viewers, is this a problem in your country? I feel like it can't just be Australia that's this stupid. Like, is this also a problem in around the world, other countries? Please let me know in the comments below. Let's get some discussion happening. Please share this video around with the rest of Australia. Get this warning out there. And while you're at it, do all that other YouTube stuff, you know what you call it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, get notified, be kind, rewind, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. See you around.